Greetings, Warlords. Rodge here. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the Skirmish Miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. Today we're joined by Luke from the UK. Luke, how's it going?
Great, thanks, Rodge. Great to be on the channel. How are you?
I am good. So, folks are seeing a polished video at this point, but we've had the mother of all technical gremlins trying to get this thing going. So we won't have video today, but folks at home, we tried our best, and we actually recorded a previous version a few months ago. It didn't turn out the best, and you agreed to kind of come on and again. And so I think it was actually the first Age of Chivalry review that I did. And you were kind of okay coming back because you kind of learned a lot about the Bretons since then, right?
I did. That is true. I played the Bretons in the first UK Age of Chivalry event ever to be organised. It was my friend James, who has been on your channel doing the Hussites, and he organised that. That's right. And he organised that tournament, and I played the Bretons there. Since then, I've played a couple more games and done a little more thinking, and I'm ready to share what I've learned, I guess, and hopefully this time.
All right.
Yeah.
So that was a few months ago already, so I can't even remember what might be different in this review. I think I do have the audio. Maybe that would be an interesting thing to compare. But so we're just gonna crack off here. We are kind of under a little bit of a time limit that we ran into here, so we're just gonna get it going here, and we're just going to jump right in. So the Bretons in Age of Chivalry, the Warlord and the Hearth Guards can be mounted. They can be on foot. The Warriors can be mounted. They can be on foot. And the levies just have to have bows, which is kind of interesting because most of the other levies get crossbows.
Not this one. Not these guys. It's strictly Dark Age equipment options from as you may be familiar with in the Vikings and invasions, and that's the way I like it because I know how they work, and they're really fun to use. I can tell you from the off that what you're going to be wanting with the Bretons is the horses and the bows, and they're both very well supported by this board, and we'll see as we go on what that means.
Okay. So you taking like more than one levy unit, or
absolutely, yeah. I think I would take between 2 points and 1.5 points because you want to take lots of mounted as well because the board supports that very well, and maybe some foot in specific situations, but you can dismount your warriors and your Hearth Guard as required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, I don't think last time that was the kind of advice you were given here, but I think people like crossbows obviously, but the thing with Age of Chivalry and what might kind of put the bows back in contention, actually, just kind of thinking off the top of my head here, is so many boards have a great shooting reaction that can just completely nullify one shot outright. And so you're talking multiple units of bows to kind of get past that. But you could see, just having bows, you could shoot once, they absorb it. You really need to get some casualties through, so you just shoot again and, kind of bypass their shooting defenses with the second one, kind of.
Absolutely. I mean, being as they are I think they're one of the few factions that can take bows. I mean, there are a couple of other ones, but if you can take bows, that's the advantage of the bow, is that it can double activate to shoot. So you can play into that. You have to play into that with this board. So yeah, you're right.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's move on to the special sauce of the board here. Is it Vigilant and Surprise? Is that?
That's right. So you can, as Bretons, you can put keywords on your opponent as opposed to having keywords of your own. And the way they work is there are 2 keywords, Vigilant and Surprised, and they pop up on 5 different abilities of the battle board and change the effects of the your advanced Saga abilities. The meaning of them is that if your opponent has no dice on their board at any moment, they are surprised, and if they have one dice or more dice on a Saga ability somewhere, then they are vigilant. So that's it's pretty simple, but it can change quite quickly during the game, and almost at a moment's notice. And halfway through a melee sometimes in step 3, you can see what happens.
Yeah, so we'll get into that kind of as we get into the abilities.
Yes,
your opponent does kind of have an opportunity to potentially trip you up. It's kind of like, I don't know, like, are you, who's going to call who's bluff here about whether they'll be vigilant or surprised or not. Now, in certain situations, like if they just leave a die on an activation for like a Hearth Guard or a warrior or something, well, they have like no chance to burn that during their turn. So that they're going to be like vigilant the whole turn. But if they have like melee abilities or reactions or whatever, they can start vigilant and surprise.
Absolutely.
I don't think there's a way to gain dice that I could think of.
Well, that's right. I mean, you either begin your turn with the enemy surprised, or you begin it with you begin your turn with them vigilant, and in certain situations they will flip from vigilant to surprised at some point during their turn, and it's it's quite fun to kind of predict when that will be. The book has it right in the clarification section. It says, don't worry too much about being vigilant or being surprised. I mean, it's true. I found that most of the abilities work pretty well both ways, and you're not really hamstrung, apart from perhaps in one case, which we'll get to. Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a matter of, now if I'm trying to remember back to our first crack at it, but I believe one of them is kind of more attack oriented, and one of them will kind of give you more of a defensive buff, but not always. And that's kind of a general.
All of your defensive abilities as the Breton player are on the surprised side, but
okay.
But there aren't any defensive abilities for you other than the combat bonus, of course, on the surprise side. The abilities on the abilities on the surprise side, they're much more deadly. So you can put a lot of more damage through, but if you want to sort of so basically the game becomes much more deadly for everyone, really.
Yeah.
Once you're surprised,
you have no defense, and you're going to be doing a lot more damage maybe than you would have otherwise.
Yeah.
Once they're surprised. So, okay. Well, let's jump in. Let's take a look. This will kind of make sense once we take a look at some of these abilities here. And just like last time, I pull my little graphics or whatever from the PDF files that Studio Tomahawk sends me. And for whatever reason, when I pulled the Bretons one here, the dice seem to end up purple. When I look at the PDF, they are blue, but in the video here, they look purple. But I think it's kind of cool. Somebody should make some purple chivalry dice. Kind of split the difference between the red and the blue. I'm my own man. I'm purple dicing it. But all right. So first up, we've got Hound Them, and this is a common or uncommon melee ability. If your opponent is vigilant, remove 1 fatigue from your unit. It's not bad. But if your opponent is surprised at the end of the melee, you activate a friendly unit for a charge that generates no fatigue. So there is maybe kind of a defensive versus an offensive component to this, but tell us about this ability.
Okay. Well, this is the one ability that you must be sure.
It's quite a different effect, yeah.
It's a completely different effect. I mean, it's not the worst thing if you. But I mean, we have to kind of break it down. So if you're the attacker and the enemy's vigilant, it's really useful because you can. It's like the Vikings frig ability, which I really loved from Age of Vikings, where you can charge. You end up being able to charge like 12 inches without fatigue. So you remove the fatigue as the first thing you do in step 3. And this is exactly the same, except you can charge 24 inches now because you've got a horse. So very exciting. And also, like there's you, if you're kind of inside a swamp or something and you're on foot, or if you need to charge into terrain with a horse, this is kind of the get out of jail free card for that, because it means that you're able to do that, which you wouldn't be expected to do in in either of those situations. So you can use it. Using it defensively though, when the enemy's vigilant, it's kind of almost useless. It's like, because the enemy will just use your fatigue before you can play this. But there are 2 cases actually where you can play it vigilantly, or you can play it defensively. The Germans have got an ability called close formation, where they add, so you can just take it off again. And they're 4 auto hits, or they're like remove 8 attack dice that they had lined up, is they can't use it anymore. And the 3 companies have got one of their characteristically named abilities called Spiteful Hate, which they have to play a dice for, and that causes your every fatigue they then use to have both reduce your armor and increase their armor. But before they can actually use any of your fatigue, you can remove the 1 fatigue that you do have. So defensive, Hound Them, vigilant. It's possible to spring some surprises with it. So now, surprised as attacker, it's a lot more deadly. I mean, you can charge with the same unit again. So you can charge with it's a bit like the Scots ability, drive home the nail, except you both have gained fatigue, whereas with the Scots you don't.
Yeah, kind of potentially better in some situations. Trying to kill a warlord or something. You'd rather get that fatigue on.
Absolutely. I mean, it saved my bacon one time because I rolled a boat of uncommons and I wanted to charge with my warriors. So I charged with my Hearth Guard and got the free charge to use on my warriors. So that's, it's activate warriors for a charge with an uncommon in that another kind of niche situation. And this is the one you were talking about, is if you are the defender and the enemy is surprised. So when that would almost never happen, because they've paid a dice to charge with. What was that? Was that their last dice? It would have to be that. You don't get the counter charge, really. I mean, it's like it never happens. But it's fun if they do have like 1 dice and they really want to charge you, but they really don't want to be charged for some reason. Then that would be fun. But it almost never happens.
Sure. Yeah. So we're kind of talking about activation reaction, essentially. So doing a charge in the opponent's turn, and they would have to basically, manage their dice in such a way as to allow you to do that. Except, should we talk about? I
think we should.
What is that?
Leave the audience in suspense, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Leave us some juice to talk about.
Yeah.
So people played against them, they know what's coming, but we'll put that in our pocket and save it for later. But so this is pretty good. Not every board has fatigue management in Age of Chivalry, and I think last time we weren't quite sure, but only I think Burgundians have a fatigue-free charge.
Yeah, they do.
Just off the top of
that's right. And the French warlord, of course, with Monsieur Saint-Denis. But this is, but there aren't many. And I mean, the Burgundian ability, I have a jealous eye on slightly, because that is an activation that is fatigue free.
Yeah,
very efficient. But then again, it is a rare, so it's balanced with this ability.
Wow. It's usually preceded by a 12-inch move from a unit of infantry too.
That is true.
It's got its own. charm to it. But all right, let's move on to Rout of Arrows. So
yeah. So you can go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we got the English had a few different of arrows abilities. Maybe they would want this one here. I don't know, but activating unit to shoot for just a common there. So it's going to be the levy. So already it's looking pretty good. If the enemy suffers a casualty at the end of the shooting attack, it must make a move of S that takes them as close as possible to their own table edge. So not the side edges, but their own table edge. So typically, this will be moving further away from your troops, but if you can get some troops behind, right, you'd be moving closer to shoot. Have you ever managed to pull that off, or I mean, there's something there?
No, well, it's my favorite thing is to try to get my Byrant to stand in front of a swamp for me, so I can just push
yeah.
But again, it's not that's not really what this is. It's what it kind of is what the Bretons don't do is grind, and so if they come up against like the Scottish or the the Swiss or something, then they can't I sent like my foot warriors in against the Scottish the first time I tried that, and they melted like snow. It was incredible to see, really, because they got coat and they got clothes ranked on, and the Scots played all their attack dice abilities, and it was just carnage. So what you do is first of all you throw down a lot of terrain, and you want to kind of have a mixture of terrain and open space with Breton, and you put your levy in there, and they are a ton of bodies, and they can outrange the. If you're 11 inches away, then they can't even charge you with a double activation, and you can pling them for a while, and you can play this, which pushes them away, which means that they have to move back, S towards you again the next turn, and you play this again, and you push them away again. It's I mean, I kind of the inspiration for me for this is the Battle of Falkirk, where the English actually went up against the Scots, and just it was the longbow against the pike, and the longbow did its business. And
cool.
So it's almost a stealth grinding ability, and where you can go against pike factions or like heavy melee factions with guys with bows, and it's quite it's one of the things that makes the Breton Brawl quite exciting to play. Basically, is you get to do this fun stuff like shooting that does pushback.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. The so obviously against the infantry armies, that movement backwards hurts a little bit more because it takes them so much longer. But I'm sure even against cavalry and stuff, they have to be careful to stay more than S away from terrain, perhaps. And halfway through the battle, you come in, at a weird angle, and all of a sudden you push the enemy cav into some trees, maybe, or something, or the swamp, glorious swamp.
The glorious swamp. The glorious swamp, indeed. I mean, I think for some reason, and I can't think why, cavalry tend to stay away from my guys with bows.
Yeah, that's weird. That's weird.
Kind of, unaccountable, but it's, I mean, if they're caught in the open, then you're in trouble, because a double charge from a cavalry will outrange you, and you'll get squished. But this is one of the reasons why I am a fan with Bretons of, a little bit like the landscape of Brittany itself. You want like some open spaces, but also large areas of sticky terrain that you can sit in. And, anyway.
Some different lanes for the opponent to come down, kind of break up the battlefield a bit. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, cool. Yeah, great ability. Probably if you're taking 2 units of levy, probably using this every turn.
And that's
just to shoot. Yeah.
You touched on it a bit, yeah. Like it's a common to activate levy. I mean, with a board, if you're looking for a board that favors levy, what you're looking for a cheap way to move them, and a cheap way to activate them to attack somehow. And well, Breton board's got both of those things. So, and this is like one. I mean, it's actually got multiple instances of both of them, and this is your cheap shot. So we'll take that. Thank you very much. Even if it didn't do the pushback, it would still be, you know, a useful ability to have. Anyway.
Definitely. All right.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another straightforward ability here. Hard fighting. Any die, gain 3 attack dice in shooting or melee. Okay, pretty sweet. 5 if you use that juicy helmet. Are you using the red or the blue dice for your?
Blue dice.
Blue dice. How are those working for you? Getting those crowns, those rares.
Yeah, there. I mean, there's enough. There's definitely. I've got no complaints.
I feel like the red ones. I don't know. I just keep rolling a ton of them on the red ones. So if you're not getting enough rares, try on the blues. Try switch to the reds. See how that goes for you.
Where you put them in water and you see if you can get them to pop the same face every time. That's like that's the truth of it there.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm oblivious. You know, who knows what the power these dice hold. But anyways, back to some hard fighting here. So 3 dice for 3 attack dice for 1 die. Not too shabby. Pretty standard.
This is like the other. This is the other one of the other ability. I mean, it's actually an A1 ability. Any dice facing, a decent amount of attack dice, shooting all melee, no conditions, a bonus for playing the rare. I think that lots of boards any board would be happy to have this ability on there. As I play it quite a lot. It's got a lot of uses. It's pretty. I've looked through all the boards to check this out. It's pretty much unparalleled as a shooting ability, as a way to gain shooting dice. I think that there isn't anything else that is this easy to use that gives you this many attack dice. So it stacks very well with Rout of Arrows because you're much more likely to get your casualty and get the pushback.
Yeah, I mean you could have 10 or 11 attacks easy. I mean, if you have the rare, even then 8 or 9 with the common is nothing to sneeze at.
It's incredible, and you know, like shooting is always like no risk as well. You're not going to take any casualties yourself. So it's the shooting ability in Chivalry that they forgot to nerf. I think they left it in there.
Well, you know, they probably no crossbow levy, but we got the bows, so they feel more comfortable leaving that in.
I think so. It would be terrible with crossbows.
We'll see. Maybe it'll be fact, but
I mean,
I don't think so. Yeah.
No, I don't think. Oh, I hope not. Fingers crossed. But I mean, this is the other. It's another sort of echo back to the Vikings as well that I spent a long time playing. But you can kind of trade up with a small unit. So if you've got like 5 guys on horses, you can charge in with this and do 10 with a rare and do 10 attack dice, and it's very easy to use. And you can, I mean, as we'll see later, there are definite advantages to having some small melee units with this board.
Okay.
But this is a star ability. This one, and
absolutely. Well, let's pop down to Confusion. This is a 2 die using a common and a rare in melee. 2 dice here. Your opponent is vigilant. Inflict 1 fatigue on each of 2 enemy units not taking part in the melee. And then if that wasn't wild enough for you, if your opponent is surprised, add 4 automatic hits to the hits you inflict there. So definitely going to get somebody's attention there. And I don't really know what I would rather face least. Honestly, I'd probably just say, just take the hits. Leave my other units alone, man. But so when we're thinking about these abilities, just in the nature of the game, is your opponent going to be vigilant most of the time? Do they try to be vigilant?
I think that it's kind of a symptom of the curve of the game. You know, the narrative arc of the game is that if you're doing well, then they'll be spending more of their time surprised late game, and that's where you want them. But I mean, it's hard to get them there, and you have to. The first couple of turns are very important because you need to be taking dice away, and you need to be destabilizing them, and increasing the mental load on them as much as you can, any way you can. Most of the time, they're vigilant at the start. You can't count on them being surprised early game. I guess that answers your question.
Interesting. Yeah, so it really is kind of more of an early game, late game dynamic to it in some way. So that makes sense. I hadn't really thought about it that way, but but I think if you do get the 2 dice, one rare, I think this is pretty good. I'd probably use this if I got it. Does it meet the 2 dice ability test for you?
I think so. Yeah, I think it does. I think it's the one that got all the attention when it was first revealed, definitely, and deservedly so. It's pretty deadly, and I think it's. I mean, both effects are. It's one of the abilities where you kind of don't. It doesn't really matter which effect you get; they're both good.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's the first vigilant versus surprised one we've had since Hound Them. So it's probably worth noting that. It's I mean, it's really useful. It's good to play. You've got to think about a little bit about what your opponent can do, because if they can remove lots of fatigue really easily, then you can skip over this one maybe until you can get the surprised effect.
Sure. Yeah. So like if it might be a sequence thing. If you can't capitalize on that fatigue immediately, then you spend 2 dice, one a rare, to put 2 fatigues on, and they can presumably rest off 2 fatigues on their turn with 2 dice. So it's kind of
but
trade at that point.
That will slow them down, and I think it's. No, you're right. It's a trade. It's a dice economy thing. Definitely, yeah, it's a trade.
So if you have seven Saga dice, they got 5 or whatever. And they're trying to keep dice on their board to keep the vigilance up. You can see how becomes a tricky situation. But
I mean,
this is
sorry. Well,
I was going to say, this is another one where this ability's power is completely, whether you're using it on a 10-man unit of warriors or 1 levy model, it imparts the full strength of the ability in either situation. So
it's an interesting one to use defensively in that sense. You just have it on your board, and it's like a bomb. It's going to go off as soon as you touch me, kind of thing. So that's quite good. I mean, it's a very we're lucky to have it as Bretons. We're lucky to have it on the board. It's a kind of very, it's a nice one to have. Well, I think we'll get into this later, but it's powerful enough that it changes the way your enemy thinks. For example, it might make them close ranks if they think it's coming.
Sure. Just save on 4s for the auto hits if they,
and that's important.
Is coming.
That's important because you want them to close ranks because of an ability that comes later. You're kind of, so just put a pin in that one. But other than that, it's very good, and I'm always looking for the common and the rare together, and if I have them spare. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, let's go on to Din of Battle. This is an uncommon melee for a mounted unit only. So mounted stuff before, but if your opponent is vigilant, gain 3 defense dice. If your opponent is surprised, you get a +1 bonus to your attack dice. So this one is these are quite 2 different abilities here.
I think in terms of value, it's a bit wonky, really, because 3 defense dice is not the same value as +1. Depends how many attack dice you have.
Yeah, if you're one guy closing ranks trying to survive, you want those defense dice. If you're 8-man Hearth Guard unit, 16 attacks, you might want the +1.
I mean, I think of this as a sort of a pair with confusion, basically, because they're not competing for any dice facing, and sometimes if you're charging with your large unit of mounted, then a +1 bonus to your attack dice is I'm not sure of the maths exactly, but it's comparable. And if you don't roll the confusion combination, but you do roll an uncommon, and you can get the surprised effect, then I'm not really shedding any tears over that. I'm quite happy to be getting that.
Yeah, kind of just depends on your objective at the time. So when you load it up, you'll probably know kind of most of the times.
Yeah.
Which effect you will be getting. So, but opportunities there. Maybe your opponent could try to throw you off or something. But there's risks to that. I'm sure. It depends what else you have on your board. Probably.
Well, it's what makes what makes them so exciting to play. Basically, is that, and in fact, exciting for your opponent too, because they've got they've got this feeling that they can, and what they can affect the outcome of things, and they can to an extent. But actually, what's happening is you're just having a good time. Everyone's just sort of like
it doesn't matter. Yeah, like you said, and you kind of mentioned it. It doesn't matter. You're going to get some utility out of these abilities.
Yeah.
No
defense dice are always good. So it's not bad value really. That's all. Okay.
But all right. Well, let's pop up here to line of lances. So 2 commons, activate a unit Hearth Guards to charge. So been sneaking in these Hearth Guard only or Hearth Guard boosted abilities in most of these chivalry boards. Figures in this unit have an aggression of 3 during the ensuing melee. So I just talked about like an 8-man Hearth Guard generating 16 attacks. Well, with this ability, you could have a 5-man Hearth Guard generating 15 attacks. Maybe getting a +1. That's nothing to sneeze at there.
Yep, that's good. You do have to keep your Hearth Guard alive because
yes, you might want that. Would rather have the defense dice rather than the +1, maybe in that particular situation.
Well, yeah, I mean it's the maths is that 15 Hearth Guard is 15 attacks with 5 Hearth Guard is great. It's if you have 6 Hearth Guard, you only get 16 attacks, so the value goes down quite a lot. In spite of that being your best and biggest hit that you can make with this board. And then as the Hearth Guards start to die off, then it starts to it never quite drops out of, because you're going to be getting the activation as well. But by the time it gets to sort of 2 or 3 models, it starts to get less spectacular, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think mathematically, the Saga math of spending Saga dice and what you're getting, like it comes out fine. Obviously the biggest bang for your buck would be like a 5-man unit there. Exactly. So I think, what kind of Hearth Guard units are you taking? Are you?
I am working towards being a bit braver and taking like two units of 5.
Yeah, so you see, like, I think, there's something there. It's quite, decent number of attacks, with this ability in particular. But
I mean, I think it's like you kind of need. I think what I'm currently taking is a 1 unit of 4, and I'm using this ability with them at least once a game.
I think that's still pretty good. Yeah, 12 attacks. That's good. Yeah, that's nothing to sneeze at.
But the attrition is something that I'm working on mitigating, and there's ways of doing that. And I think that this is what I'm kind of working up to, basically. I want to take a bit more Hearth Guard, mainly because they're cool, and because I get to use this ability. But I mean, like a 12-man warrior unit will give you your 12 attacks already.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it's more of a challenge to myself, basically. Can I get this ability off with and how many times can I get it off during a game? Basically, it's a little challenge I've set myself.
It's cool. Yeah.
When
you load this up, like, what the game plan is that turn. You're not flexible this turn. Like, these guys are going in. I've allocated 2 of my 6 dice or whatever to this plan, and we're gonna make it happen.
Sure.
Kind of deal.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice ability to have on the board. And if you can get it, if you can use it, then that you feel good. Basically, it's But as we said, it is a tiny bit of a trap, and you can't get too excited about it because it'll trap you. Yeah, you'll regret it.
All right, let's pop down to Brittany. Brittany. I think it's
Brittany.
Now, we talked about this last time with the font here. Is it Ivo?
Yeah, that's
IVO.
Spelled. Yeah, IVO. Yeah, Evo. Yeah. Well, actually, no. I spoke to a friend of mine, and she said it was Avo. Sant'Avo. Yeah,
Sant'Avo. I like that. That's cool. Uncommon melee. If your opponent is vigilant, they must discard 3 attack dice. Alrighty. If they are surprised, they must discard 2 of the defense dice. They would roll to cancel the hits they've suffered. So that is pretty cool. So if they have no defense dice and you hit them twice, those hits would just automatically go straight through.
That is the effect.
If they were surprised. Yeah. Okay.
That is correct.
We know the Saxons have an ability like that, and one of my favorite abilities of all time. Just stopping my opponent from rolling dice. They have no chance to get lucky. But it is attached to the surprise.
It is
here.
But this is the thing, though. I'm much more excited about the vigilant version of this ability.
Okay.
And I'll tell you for why. I mean, it's again, what's the question gets asked again and again: is it better to discard attack dice or to gain defense dice? And it completely depends on the situation. If you have lots of hits coming in, you've got high armor, or you want the defense dice. But if you have a small number of hits coming in that you desperately want to stop, then remove attack dice, please, because you can gain you can gain 6 defense dice and roll 1 to 4 on all of them. But if the enemy's got 3 or 4 attack dice, and you can take all of them away with an uncommon, then you're absolutely laughing. It's like it's so much stronger in that situation specifically. So when do you charge in and you have 3 attack dice coming at you? Well, when the enemy's close ranks, or when the enemy is a block of levy that is trying to shoot you because your opponent saw all the horses and thought, I'm going to take lots of crossbow levy. So you charge in 24 inches, play this with your Hearth Guard, your 5 Hearth Guard, and you drop a lot of attack dice on this unit. They can't do anything back at you. Your Hearth Guard then run away again, and the next turn you do the same thing again. So with maths like that, with like exchanges like that, you only have to do 2 or 3 of those, and you've won the game. So that's why I'm excited about this one, and about sort of, that's what, when I looked at that, I thought, why is that like that? And that's why I think it's like that, is because as Bretons, with your mobility, what that gives you is the ability to pick a target, and you can pick the one that is going to has the right number of attack dice and is the biggest threat to you, and you can hit it very much with the odds in your favor.
Definitely. Yeah. Someone like, this ability could be gain 3 defense dice. And, they have an ability like that, but something about discard 3 attack dice, mentally, it kind of hits the opponent different. There's kind of like a psychological aspect, I think, to this. Even just kind of like an average dice going from 8 down to 5, it's like, you can't even, like, your medium-sized blows all of a sudden are getting hampered pretty well. And like you said, if they just have 4 attacks going to 1, That's pretty tasty. Charging those Hearth Guard in to the levy, but we know that one attack is guaranteed to be a 6 against the Hearth Guard there. So at least you're capping it. They would have killed 2 or 3 Hearth Guard with those 4 attacks. So you're capping the slaughter to a single guy in that instance. But
you've got to do what you can.
Yeah, we do what we can. So, all right, nice. Next one down, Shelter, shooting a reaction. The opponent must discard half their attack dice. So, most those big levy crossbow blocks, shooting 6, going down to 3. So, 2 2 discards right after. Right after.
It's another. It is a discard. Another. Yeah, it's a discard attack dice ability again. I mean, it's pretty good. I think that it stacks well against the other token shooting reaction abilities that every board seems to have. I think. I mean, your best defense though with Bretons against shooting is distance and high terrain, and because that's absolutely guaranteed to stop absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Why would you? You could be like your opponent hasn't got a line of sight to you or is out of range, so then you save your dice and you can use it on something else. I mean, it's you sometimes can't avoid shooting, and when in that situation, it's really good to have, and I'm glad it's there. But don't count on it to save you when your warriors on horses will be hit on a 2+ with crossbows, and it won't help. It's not going to be a huge deal. I mean, the one place I've seen where I think, okay, this is really good. I would really like to have this. Is when I'm playing Burgundians and they have that spring the snare ability, and you can't avoid that shot. You're going to take it, but so you have this. So you can play this in response to the shot that you take as you come in with that with your charge, and you get the snare sprung on you, and it mitigates it a tiny bit, I think.
Yeah,
given that it's going to happen.
I think this one's pretty good as far as for looking at the chivalry shooting reactions. Just a common or uncommon, and then you can use it on any unit, and it's going to do something.
That's true. Yeah.
Some of the other shooting reactions, you got to use it with a Hearth Guard, or you have to use it with a rare to really make it useful, or it's not super useful. I think one of them gives you resilience. Against shooting, you're like, well, okay, I guess that's
I don't really want resilience.
There's a downside to that. So yeah, nice flexible shooting reaction ability.
Yeah. It's a very egalitarian board, the Bretons.
That's right.
Apart from the line of lances.
God. Now, all right. So we get into the juice here. We got an uncommon activation or melee, which is very unusual option in Saga. Your opponent counts as both Vigilant and Surprise for the purposes of the next Saga ability you trigger. And I believe there was, since our discussion, there was kind of a hot fact came out and clarified that this could carry forward to like future turns.
Yes.
It's the next Saga ability. So somebody might have wanted to argue that maybe at some point. But they've confirmed that is how it works. So, you're going to use it one way or the other.
Exactly. It's the wonkiest ability I've ever seen on a Saga board. It's absolutely nuts. I mean, I think in the FAQ, not only can you play it as the last thing in your own activation phase and have it affect a melee ability that you've got that you then use defensively in your opponent's turn, you could even play it at the end of your activation phase. Then on your next turn, just load up your board and do nothing.
Sure, yeah.
And it would affect the next Saga ability you play. As long as so it's just completely weird. I mean, but generally though, you use it to get like to sort of get your to have some control over what you actually the effect you want to get, because
or like if we've been saying most of the time it's going to be vigilant, but you really want that surprise effect. Or it could be vice versa. You're going to be able to get it with certainty. With this one,
with like at least one of your abilities, you're going to be able to get it the way you want it, basically. And yeah, that's right. And so this is for this reason it gets played every turn and kind of like activated every turn. And yeah, I mean, it's got some very. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, which one do you like to use it with? So we've seen, Hound Them's pretty good, I think. Confusion, quite a few dice for that.
Hound Them on the offensive, on the attack. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. Confusion is incredible value because you're effectively getting two dice abilities for 3 dice, or for like a, it's very good value. I think that the one coming up, it's probably even more powerful.
Right, we can just see it on the screen here, just the top half of the ability. It's kind of cut off at Overwhelm.
Right. I want to say, before we move on, Rodge, just before we move off Kyle, all the Breton players out there who are fed up with getting Lions of Scotland played on them, and which takes a dice off their board, a single dice off their board, or Bracheshi Tactics played on them, where they have to move a 1 dice ability with their combat bonus.
Oh, okay.
Don't forget to play Guile before the melee happens.
Oh, sure.
But then you get to keep Confusion, and you can play Confusion defensively. And also, if you play Guile in your activation phase, then charge with Determination or with We Obey, so not a Saga ability, then you get to play you get to avoid the effect of those 2 abilities in your turn as well.
Okay.
So
sounds like you've had some run-ins.
But it's
those guys.
Well, I know what they know what's coming now. But don't just don't forget to play it. Basically, have a plan of what. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. No. Overwhelm is the last one here. Using a common or the rare, activate a unit to move, or up to 2 if you use a rare. If you're vigilant, you can activate 1 additional unit, so either 2 or 3. Opponent surprise. The activations don't generate fatigue, and each get a bonus move distance of S.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned maybe combining Guile with this one. So let's just say you got that rare on there. You can move 3 units up to medium fatigue, or not medium. You get to move 3 units with a bonus of S and fatigue free. And if it's cavalry, that could be 16 juicy inches.
Yeah. I mean, you can see why it's so attractive, how it attracts Guile so much. But even without Guile, this is a really efficient multi-activation ability to move. And for one common, you can have you can get those levy moving.
Stinky levies, yeah.
Yep. You can get like it's a little bit like, it reminds me a bit of Ardor from the Carolingian board, where you can just maybe you've got 3 units of mounted, just swish them around the board, and it's very again incredible value for the dice. If you however you play it, really, it's very handy. And I mean, what's you can do the 36-inch charge with it, so you can charge fatigue. You can do Hound Them to remove the fatigue you come in with. And before that, you do a fatigue-free move with a distance of bonus into S, and you get a ridiculous length of charge for that. But I actually like doing it. I actually like using it to run away as well. Like, I mean,
so your opponent, you fought, you took the fatigue. You're gonna just scoot off with your horses, or even your foot guys. Really, you're engaged against other foot sloggers.
Yeah, I mean, so you've got to, after the withdrawal, you're S away, and you say, I'm going to play Overwhelm now, and I'm going to move fatigue free. It's 18 inches, and either they say, okay then, and that's not the optimal thing for them to do at all, because you've just escaped, and you can rest that off next turn. Or the optimal thing for them to do is to shorten you to S, but they would have to remove your fatigue to do that.
Yes.
So you get to move again anyway, and you still end up L plus S away. So it's kind of like they wanted to make the Welsh in the mounted Welsh in Age of Chivalry.
Sure, yeah.
But they didn't want it to be as easy to do your hit and runs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Just kind of how that played out there. All right, buddy. Well, we are getting low on time here, so I just have one more question for you. Do you have fun playing the Bretons? And maybe a two-parter. And do your opponents have fun playing the Bretons?
Yeah,
so
I do.
Two-part question there.
I think we've always come away from our games with a big smile on our faces because it's a roller coaster ride, and you never quite know what's going to happen, and it's nobody's 100% in control.
Yeah, your opponent might try to surprise you by becoming surprised at a key moment or something like that.
It's very humorous, and it's great. It's a great laugh, basically. Yeah, and I think that it's I've been lucky enough to win most of my games so far.
Cool.
But if I did go onto a losing streak, I'd probably still keep playing them, to be honest, because it's sort of like it's quite addictive, basically. That sort of that kind of unpredictability.
Yeah, that's cool. I could see. Yeah, in some ways you're kind of giving your opponent some mental load here, and if you have the right attitude, you're just like, wow, Vigilant or Surprise, something's going to happen here, and I'm going to work with it. I'm going to figure it out, make it happen. So sounds cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that will be it for this one, Luke. Thanks for coming on, working, recording 2 faction reviews for 1 faction, and having all those technical issues to boot. I really, really appreciate it, man.
It was a pleasure, Rodge. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you, man. Bye-bye.
Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon, or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.